That third encounter with the milkman was not the end of the milkman. Further meetings, real ones as well as the communally fabricated ones, also took place. At the real ones, and similar to when we met in the 10-minute area, the milkman didn't pretend any accidental bumping into me. There was no feigned surprise, no "fancy seeing you here." Instead it was "ah, there you are," plus other familiar expressions, all said casually as if they were fulfilling on some prior arrangement to meet up. These meetings took place everywhere. I'd pop to the local shops, he'd be there. I'd go into town, he'd be there. I'd come out of work, he'd be there. I'd visit the library, he'd be there. Even when I'd go to places and come out of them, and he wasn't there, still it seemed as if he was there. Sometimes, too, I'd recognise one of those district spotters and think, that child's been sent by him to spot me. Probably hadn't, of course. More likely the infant was doing its normal state forces and military insurgency spotting, or maybe it was having a day off from spotting. Thing was, my growing suspicions of almost everyone and everything was proof of how the milkman had got in. He'd infiltrated my psyche, and now it was clear those first 3 meetings had never been the accidental encounters I'd tried to pretend to myself they had been. And now he was appearing, stopping me, standing in the way of me or falling into step beside me, all in the manner of some ordinary meeting up. This felt an injustice. As for the community, and my affair with the milkman according to this community, I was now well in it, that being the case whether I was or not. It was put about I had regular engagements with him, rendezvous, intimate ... at various ... places. In particular, we frequented our 2 favourite romance spots, which were the parks and reservoirs and the 10-minute area. Though also we were partial, it was said, to spending time just the 2 of us, and presumably all the people who were spying on us, where the tall grasses grew over the ancient tombstones in the old part of the usual place. Ever so confidently, ever so arrogantly, I stepped into his flashy cars, it was said, for yes, many people had seen me. Pics are up for assignations, they said, for their trysts, their lovers' appointments, and they go to these places. When they're not there, it was also said, they're fostering illicit togethernesses downtown at those risky bars and clubs. Already he's married, you know, whispered people, and already he's covering her, whispered back other people. Well, he is him, they said, and as for her, doesn't she have that leaning of maybe relationships instead of highly principled, rectitudinous, coupledom relationships? Which translated meant it wouldn't be long now before he moved me out of the family home and into some pad for established sunsets with him. The pad being located, of course, up the road in the red light street. Mark our words, said people, and again all this made sense within the context of our intricately coiled, overly secretive, hyper-gossipy, puritanical yet indecent totalitarian district. But out of context, away from all that itchiness, the whispering, the passing of notes, and where an unhealthy interest in sexual matters existed to the extent of sexual dirt being the most best for general gossip whenever you wanted a rest from the political gossip. It would have been difficult to gauge how all these locals were arriving at the most detailed of information regarding me and him that they were. Their creative imaginings would reach my ears, slander by gravitational slander. Then there were those other occasions when the more direct line of communication was attempted, such as when they chased me down to havoc me with questions, this time up close, face to face. The extracts that you just listened to were taken from various parts of Chapter 4 of The Milkman by Anna Burns, which has just won the Man Booker Prize 2018. I selected these particular passages because they highlight the victim blaming and stalking within the novel, which are very prominent, and they are very important issues today. And we see in the news the Me Too movement coming up time and time again, and actually just this month there's been a rape case in Northern Ireland which has made headlines because a 17-year-old girl's thong, because it was lace-fronted and because it was a thong, has been used by a defence lawyer to suggest that she consented, which is completely outdated and completely wrong. There's been protests and social media outcry asking for reforms of the legal system because currently the complainant does not get a legal representative and the fate of the accused rests in the hands of a jury, and these juries are often influenced by rape myths, which is obviously not okay. And there's this huge stigma around sexual assault and what constitutes as sexual assault, like where is the line? And I think this book highlights this very well. For me, the neighbourhood women remind me of a jury. These women victim blame and denounce our protagonist for her involvement with the milkman when in fact she's just a teenage girl being preyed upon, and she's victim and they ignore her. She has no one to turn to, and because of this it gets progressively worse. The extracts I selected, particularly at the beginning, show the encroachment of the milkman upon the protagonist, how he makes her paranoid, how he infiltrates her life, infiltrates her psyche, and he gets in. He really does have a horrific effect upon her life. The women of the village, instead of helping the young girl, they place the blame on her, insisting that it's because of her reading while walking, the fact that she does these odd things and that she has a maybe relationship. And it just sounds silly. Yes, the book is about the troubles in Northern Ireland in the 1970s, but it is about much more than that. I think stalking is the main theme, and sexual assault, what constitutes as sexual assault, because today even the lines are very much blurred. People do not know what constitutes as sexual assault and what isn't. The narrator comments that even the milkman, he didn't touch her, he wasn't rude to her, so what was he doing wrong? It's this confusion of where the barrier is, what is the line. But Burns shows through the narration, which is very sinister, that his actions are clearly debauched and immoral. There is no question about it. And the placement of the stalking within Northern Ireland amidst the Troubles highlights this violence. This man is a violent man. Stalking, which is perhaps considered more passive than rape or other types of sexual assault, is used to show how sinister it is and to show the effects of it. So perhaps Burns questions, intentionally or not, what we're doing to help victims like the narrator. Are we victim blaming and denouncing the victims of sexual assault, or are we helping them and believing them? If we look at the rape case, which I alluded to earlier, and the Me Too movement, then that would suggest that we need to do more. And I think that's what she's trying to say partly in this book.